The thing about, well, a little word on the terminology. A lot of heavy-duty legalized cannabis users don't like the term marijuana because of its associations with the racism against Mexicans and affiliating it with, you know, something bad, you know. It kind of ethnicize it in a negative way they feel. Other people don't feel that way. So a lot of people want to call it cannabis, which is a scientific name. I just prefer to say pot. Okay, is there any objections to that? No, we can move on. Where to begin? Okay, so the talk tonight is about the New York State scene, New York State politics on pot. And we can start with the primary thing we're all here for is to legalize it, okay? And that is a Marijuana Taxation and Reform Act, which is, we say MARTA. That's the bill that Liz Kruger sponsors, right? And it's the bill for full recreational use. It doesn't make it out of committee. In the Assembly, it's sponsored by Crystal Peoples-Stokes. I had, it's been reintroduced. I had the bill number here. Do you have the bill number? Unfortunately, I didn't write it down, but it's got a new bill number. And when you look at it, the things the Greens are most into is that, unlike the Compassion Care Act, which is the bill we have now for medical marijuana, the positive things for this is that anyone can smoke pot, provided they're over 18 years old. It's not based on medical. And
18
so,
or 21?
18, I think it's 18 or 21.
I think it's 21, but 18 if you have a medical use.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
You know, and so, I mean, I kind of want to go pure recreational. I tend to ignore the medical aspect, not that it's invalid, but it gives it some kind of scientific credibility and appeases people to make it medical, but really the moral and ethical thing is for total legalization. It's immoral and it's unethical to keep it legal. As we all know, it was made to oppress people. You know, they made pot illegal originally to oppress Mexicans because Mexicans. Hi.
Hi. Okay, we only just started, so.
Okay.
Is there a sign-up sheet around?
And this came after the 1920s, and the invasion of Pancho Villa in New Mexico was still fresh on everybody's mind. When the Mexican Revolution sort of kind of collapsed or fizzled out, a lot of Mexicans moved north to the border, you know, because of political oppression. And it turned out that Pancho Villa's troops, half of them were smoking pot. So there is a revolutionary aspect to marijuana, and they continued that, and nobody really cared about marijuana until these Mexicans, and of course I love Mexico, so I'm not putting them down. I love Pancho Villa. I'm glad their troops are smoking pot. And, you know, but Anglos, the WASP leadership didn't like it, so they made these laws. And this great book here, The Marijuana Conviction, A History of Marijuana Prohibition in the United States by Richard J. Bonney and Charles H. Whitebread II, okay, goes into that history in depth. People who are serious about marijuana legalization should read it. So back to MARTA. So the recreation, we're removing the stigma. We are winning the war to legalize marijuana. You know, the war for independence is being won. And now the struggle is to see who can dominate it. And MARTA has the things that we like, which is it wants to grant numerous licenses to various people. In other words, there's this concept of horizontality and verticality in an industry. Horizontality means that in MARTA's case, they divide it into production, distribution, wholesale, and resale. And each of these categories gets a specific license. And if you're in one category, you cannot have a relationship with a business in another category other than, you know, like if you're a truck driver, of course you gotta send it to the wholesaler, etc. But you can't have any fiduciary or any kind of licenses, you know, attachments to the other one. And what this does is it opens the possibility of more people get granted licenses. The verticality means that it's from production to distribution. One entity gets all of that. And in New York State, only 5 entities get licenses based on the vertical principles of they all produce their own pot, they all distribute it, and they take over every aspect. And the way to get these licenses is you have to be politically connected, possibly going through Al D'Amato, Long Island. We all know who he is here, right? Who doesn't know who Al D'Amato is? Senator Pothole, Senator, you know,
also appropriate.
Yeah, Senator, when Dean Skelos' son was screwing up his employers, they all turned to Al D'Amato to have a sit down with the son to say, hey dude, you're screwing up your father. Okay, so that's the verticality, right? We don't want that. We want horizontality, and we want each category to get hundreds of licenses, so that opens a possibility for many people to get it. Okay, so that's in MARTA. It's a horizontality. Liz Kruger pointed that out. I spoke to her. That's a big thing with her. We don't want that negotiated. It has homegrown. We want homegrown, no taxation, no regulation, to undermine corporate pot. You know, pot should just be legal. You should just be able to grow it. In the MARTA, it's 6 plants or less. 3 in full maturity, 3 on the way up, and then you have to have like a wall to hide it from the public, you know, like, oh yeah, you can have your liquor cabinet and your pill cabinet, and your pills are flying all over the living room, you know, and your kid is fucking, excuse my language, you know, watching you drink and take the pills, but you gotta hide your marijuana. Okay, that's ridiculous, but I'm not gonna quibble over it. Okay, right?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can you talk at all about what, how much does it cost? How much does it cost for someone to get licensed for any of these categories?
That's still gonna be decided when we go through the legislative process. That's a great question. It doesn't mention any specific number in the bill. We have to keep an eye on it. We don't want them to negotiate the homegrown issue away, the horizontally away. And the bad thing in the bill is it prevents ex-felons from participating. So if you were like a pot dealer or you got in trouble for pot or something, you cannot participate in the industry, which means most of those arrests were Black and Latino, so it's another way of excluding Black and Latino people. So we want to remove that. And then they also want to have the state liquor authority run it, you know. So it's like, you know, the way the liquor companies, you know, you want to go to the bodega and get your beer or whatever, you know, so it'll be run sort of like that. There's all these kind of regulations in the MARTA. Okay, so that's the New York. The Greens want, could someone repeat after me? No taxation, no regulation of homegrown.
No
Okay.
taxation, no regulation of homegrown.
Thank you. All right. On a federal level, there's a bill put forward by Senator Gillibrand. She's a senator from New York, Cory Booker, and Rand Paul. And that bill is okay. It's divided into 3 parts. The first part is to study pot, which is kind of ridiculous because we've all studied pot ourselves. You know, go to any Super Bowl party, rock concert, hip hop show, family picnic, whatever, at least in my family, you know. We all know that I don't mind studying it if it's done because you want to find some kind of medical efficacy, but don't study it to justify legalizing it. That's ridiculous. We all know it's pretty harmless, you know, and if you can't handle pot, don't do it. That's my thing. The So that's kind of a wash. It's just kind of a silly thing that it's grandstanding for politicians so that they seem like they're common sense, but it's really a bunch of bullshit. Okay, the bad thing in the bill is they want to change it from Schedule 1. The DA has 4 schedules. 5? Okay. You want to list the schedules?
Sure, so, everyone knows what the Controlled Substances Act is? Yeah, so that created the 5 DEA schedules for controlled substances. Of course, alcohol and tobacco are not scheduled, and it goes from 1 to 5, 1 being most restrictive to 5 being least restrictive. And Schedule 1 is all the psychedelics, so you have psilocybin mushrooms, LSD, DMT, MDMA, and then you have heroin, and then you have cannabis, and there's some other drugs in there too. And what's special, what's unique about Schedule 1 is that it doesn't allow, it means that the federal government and the DEA recognizes that these substances have no accepted medicinal value, that they have a high potential for abuse, and what's the other one?
They don't like it.
Or that it's high potential for abuse and no accepted medicinal value. So nothing in Schedule 1 can ever be prescribed by a doctor for any illness. Whereas you go to Schedule 2, which includes substances like cocaine and methamphetamine, those can actually be prescribed by doctors for illnesses if they so choose.
Morphine is included?
Morphine would be, I think that's Schedule 2, yeah. And a lot of the opiate pain, opiates like Oxycontin and all of those are Schedule 2. So it's less restrictive than Schedule 1, but it's still a highly restrictive category.
Okay, so that's ridiculous because pot is not the equivalent of OxyContin, right? Did you say that?
No, it's not.
Okay, so for the record, yes, I've smoked a lot of pot in my life. Okay, so I'll be upfront about that. And so the last great thing about this bill, though, it's like state rights. In other words, if a state has a pro-marijuana law, the feds can't go in there and bust it all up. In other words,
So
like
it would codify that into law.
yes,
As opposed to just being an administrative policy of the White House as it was under Obama.
exactly. That's exactly right. So, and you have a question?
Yeah, so this national bill would classify from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2, is that
Yes.
right? Not 5 or 4?
No.
No,
2.
no, 2.
Okay, so-
Yeah, you almost made it clear, but you didn't
All
quite
right,
get
well,
there.
thank you. We need clarity. Did you catch that? Okay.
Oh, and I think also with the schedules also place restriction on research into the drugs. So for substances in Schedule 1, it's very difficult for universities or institutions to do any kind of research on these substances. So for something like cannabis, for example, anyone who wants to do research on it, I think they have to get approval from, I think it's the National Institute of Drug Abuse or something. And in order for them to get that institution, NIDA,
What's
gives the National Institute of Drug Abuse. I think it's part of the Department of Health and Human Services.
Yes.
And they have a restriction on who can grow cannabis for research use, and I think it's like the University of Missouri or something that has.
Louisiana.
No, it's either Missouri or Mississippi.
Mississippi. I say it's Mississippi.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
they're-
Mississippi.
So they have the sole license from NIDA to grow pot for any kind of research.
For a period of time, there were 5 U.S. citizens that were actually prescribed marijuana, or cannabis, cannabis. For, one was L.V. Musica, she had glaucoma, and cannabis was the only thing. And so they would get their pot from Mississippi, from the NIDA thing from Mississippi. Okay, so the states' rights, so I guess that jumps into Trump, states' rights. Do you know about Jeff Sessions?
Don't we all?
Okay,
Does anyone not?
Perhaps.
Okay, you want?
Give us
Sure.
a thumbnail on him.
So Jeff Sessions is a United States Senator from Alabama, and he's President Trump's nominee for Attorney General. And pot people are concerned about him, to say the least, because he's a person who in the past has shown a lot of opposition towards cannabis and towards cannabis reform. He famously said, "I thought the KKK were okay until I found out they smoked pot." He's made a lot of other ridiculous statements like that. And then there's a whole he has this whole kind of history of racist remarks and other stuff like that. You can. I actually wrote a couple articles about it, but so yeah, pot people are concerned about him because he's being nominated for to be the head of the Department of Justice, and to kind of put this into context. So under the Obama administration, does everyone know about the Cole memo?
Tell us.
So the Cole memo was basically administrative policy of the Obama administration. It was not a law. It basically was a memo in the Department of Justice advising the different judicial people around the country in various states, advising them that, and this was in response to Colorado and Washington legalizing cannabis in 2012. So this memo advised these states to not enforce federal law in states where cannabis had been legalized, provided that they were following certain criteria, making sure that the cannabis wasn't getting into the hands of cartels and stuff like that. So it was basically like the Obama administration's way of saying, okay, those states that legalized, you're cool for now, but because it's just an administrative policy, it was nothing codified into law. So the problem now with Jeff Sessions is that if he becomes Attorney General, he would have the legal authority to enforce the Controlled Substances Act. This is federal law. So he can enforce that federal law in states that have legalized cannabis and shut down the operations.
Could I make a point now? We're a relatively small group, and it seems that the presenters are happy to answer questions. Could we take questions instead of at the end? Would you like to take questions
No, you can do it before. I don't care. Whatever makes you smoke pot, you can do.
Well, I want to get back to the New York State.
Well, I want to say one thing also about Sessions. You and I just read this. There's this group, Smart on Marijuana, done by
Kevin Sabbath?
Yeah, Kevin Sabbath, but it's funded by Patrick Kennedy and the pharmaceutical companies. And they're urging Sessions on. They're like the cheerleaders for Sessions. And they're saying he could write letters to every governor of the state and find various ways to pressure. They're gonna make all kinds of threats and everything against it. And it's really gonna be a test of state rights versus federal rights. And we're Greens here, so we know the duopoly. Let's face it, California is one of the biggest pro-pot states. They just passed a legalized marijuana law. Their congressional delegation has what, like 60 members? And Nancy Pelosi and Senate, Dianne Feinstein, they have the leaders in the Senate and the Congress. They can start the ball rolling and pretty much force all the Democrats, and there's a lot of Republicans in the California delegation that could put the pressure on it to just totally legalize marijuana on a federal level. In California, you have Dana Rawbacker, one of those right-wing, reactionary, sicky congressmen, except he's got one saving grace, and that he's pro-pot. And so this kind of crosses there. And the New York State delegation, every single New York downstate Democrat is pro-pot. Crowley, Joseph Crowley, who is from Queens in the Bronx, he's the 4th deputy whip, and he's from Queens, I've lobbied him personally. He loves pot. I gave him a pot flyer, his eyes lit up, not in horror, but remembering his frat boy days, He said I could lobby him on pot anytime. Well, I think that's over since, we hammered him on the TPP. I think that door's been closed, but okay. So the point is, Jeff Sessions could totally be undermined if our congressional delegations could change the law. And so, I don't know, what do you feel about the Gillibrand Booker? I say Gillibrand, it's really Booker, Gillibrand, Ron Paul, but we're from New York, so I put Gillibrand first, okay?
Yeah.
That's a totally subjective, my choice. What do you think?
Well,
Should we go for it, that bill,
well,
or what?
this, from what I understand, I think this bill has been in the Senate, I think since 2013 or something
Yeah.
like that, so it's been in there for a little while. I don't think it's had much momentum or any kind of.
No, but do you think we should call are you for the bill?
From what I understand about the bill, from what I've read about in the past, it seems like a good bill. It's a step in the right direction. It essentially legalizes medicinal cannabis on the federal level.
Okay,
if I'm
so,
not mistaken.
in other words, our personal record, this is not a green, but we are greens, but my personal, and I would say your personal, find out we know who our senators are, call them up, tell them you're for this bill, tell Gillibrand to push harder for it, you know, tell her, and while you're doing it, criticize the reschedule, you know, and call your congressperson up, whoever that is, tell them to go for the congressional version of this bill, right? And that's, you know, so that's one of the actions you can take on the federal level. As far as MARTA goes, you can do that with your state senator and state assembly. So now this brings us to the Compassionate Care Act. This is the...
Excuse me, could you just point out briefly, what is the position from the governor, the assembly, the Senate in New York State? Why hasn't the MARTA Act been put forward? What's the history of it briefly?
The history is, like I said, we won the fight. In New York State, the latest polls are 82% of New Yorkers. It's unclear. The Quinnipiac is like 82 to 91% are for at least medical marijuana and probably for total legalization. So here's a case when your legislators are actually going against the wills of the people. So Kruger gets made fun of by upstate Republicans. They call her Senator Pot. They used to call her, she said this, we were at a New York Bar Association where, what do you call it? She was saying that she came out against a bill to lower the age of kids having guns, you know, hunting rifles and snowmobiles. They wanted to lower it to age 12 or something. So all these upstate Republicans were calling her as like Senator No Fun. She's not fun. And then she says, but meanwhile when I pros pot, now they're calling me Senator Pot. And so what we want to do is find out who these jackass Republicans and probably Democrats and harass them through Green Party campaigns upstate. Because I'm sure a lot of them are in rural districts in which marijuana could actually stimulate the economy.
Right.
You know, so they're actually holding up their own agricultural products just by being assholes.
And this is actually exactly what SSDP is working on.
So explain who they are.
Did I not?
Yes, he did.
Oh,
Yeah, but it wasn't
well, I
filmed.
explained to you.
Well, repeat it.
Okay, so yeah, Students for Sensible Drug Policy. So it's a campus-based organization around the country, but here in New York State, it's got a big presence. It's on a lot of college and university campuses. So I'm a member. I'm the president of the NYU chapter.
Give them a big hand. Come on, man.
And we've been talking with some pot people in New York City, and also people from Drug Policy Alliance and other organizations, different allies. We've been trying to formulate a push to basically do exactly what we're talking about now, where we're going to be contacting all the different senators and assembly people and pushing them to make a statement, to make a public statement on pot, whether they support it or not. And we're basically putting the pieces into place where we're gonna start doing that real soon. We're kind of, you know, we have like the infrastructure of how we're gonna contact them and record their responses. We're just putting together a small team of volunteers now.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Come on, man, we gotta be into it. Woo! Go SSDP, go
So this is-
SSDP.
And this is definitely something where, you know, we could collaborate with the Green Party if you know, if one or two representatives wants to join the team of volunteers and make the phone calls or
I'll
the
do it.
emails or whatever.
Do we have any volunteers in this audience
Specifically to do what?
to help SSDP and the Greens make the calls to the various congressmen and senators,
Get statements.
states and assembly people? You will? What's your name?
Peter?
Pierre, okay.
Peter.
Talk to us after the meeting.
Okay.
Jim, you
Yeah.
volunteer?
No. I may do some of that, but what I wanted to say was that from the last campaigns for Assembly and State Senate down here, one thing we noticed, like Joey ran in his campaign, even Seth in his campaign, that the people they were up against, except for this Missy Miller that won on medical marijuana, they were they were reluctant, the downstate people were reluctant to support the complete legalization of marijuana. Every time that Joey brought it up, and I believe Seth brought it up, in the debates, they would say, well, let's see how it goes in Colorado first. And it might be, you know, they were very
That was
wishy-washy.
them putting it mildly, because they were also equating it to heroin. They were like, we have a big heroin epidemic here.
They would
We don't
start talking
wanna-
about heroin.
Yeah.
Right,
Just, you know, standing on their soapbox because they're so smart on drugs.
right, but meanwhile, they're all taking money from pharmaceuticals out of the real cause for the heroin epidemic.
Or maybe they're looking to get a kickback from someone like Al D'Amato's
Yes,
bandwagon.
exactly.
But at any rate, I thought it was unusual, these are like liberal Democrats, right?
Because
Yeah.
there's also a dirty double thing going on. They know it's gonna be legal, but they wanna be in a position to profiteer off the people that want the licenses. So they're hedging their bets, they're going slow because they wanna somehow see like how they can take advantage of it. They don't, you know, they don't wanna just give up the ghost and let regular people do it. You know, like they wanna be in charge of the licensing procedures. And that's why they hate the homegrown issue. They'll talk about public safety, but if they were really for public safety, they would have legalized pot a long time ago and stopped throwing people in prison.
Oh,
Joey.
yeah, I keep going off. Sorry.
Okay, so when they're just hedging their bets, and imagine you've been born and raised in this country, right, or in Latin America, and you reach it, and unless you're like, even my own father smokes pot, you know, who looks at someone saying they want to throw them in prison? So when a politician just has this wishy-washy attitude, either they're a fool or they're playing the game. And back to the SSDP, I'm hoping some of these SSDP will actually become Greens and use this candidate, their campaign to run for office, you know, around the state, because you get all kinds of free publicity. Not only SSDP, we want people all over, pro-pot people all over the state to become Greens, you know, with other green values, anti-nukes, and anti-imperialism on the state level, anti-GMO, you know, anti-pesticide, you know, and pro-environmental, all of that. But as a way of pushing the martyr campaign, because when you run for office, you get all this publicity, and the politicians are like, wow, we can't let them co-opt our audience. And a lot of them will be pushed, and you can actually embarrass a lot of these upstate Republicans based on the notion of ridiculing Senator Kruger and denying their own constituency an avenue of economic development. So we're hoping, we would like to include that, you know, I mean, we want to join forces. I did call when we were doing SSDP offices. I didn't know around the state, and nobody even would pick up the phone. So that's one of the reasons I'm glad you're here. And I think we have great potential of the unity of those forces.
There's nothing in the bill about, like, criminal justice reparations, so, like, people with prior convictions to get them out of prison or to, expunge their records or anything like that?
No, but that's another part of the Green Party, the Yippie Greens, which I am one. We advocate for pardons for all nonviolent drug offenders. We want apologies. We want reparations. Forget about apologies. We want reparations based on the model of what they did for Japanese Americans who were put in concentration camps. They got reparations. There's a movement of give reparations for black people. People who survived the Holocaust got reparations, yes?
So you're taking the position that they didn't have the legal foundation, the justification for making it illegal in the first place, that it was never a legitimate law.
That's right, that could be part of it. That's right, and the reparations wouldn't necessarily come from the state. We want it to come from the Police Benevolent Association's pension funds. They have to give 5% of their dues to this because they're actively lobbying to keep marijuana illegal. We wanted the prison guards unions. We want people like Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. They have to give us at least a summer home or something. All of these politicians and all of these creeps, these attorneys, they are the ones that have to pay the reparations, not the taxpayers, but these people who directly benefited. The private prisons, CCA, Compassion Care Act, CCA. Notice they have this. CCA is Corrections Corporations of America, which runs privatized prisons, and the other one is a GEO group. They have to give us all their assets. In fact, GEO group not only is running private prisons in America, they're also training the Mossad to attack Palestinians. Okay, so they have to forfeit everything. Those people. So that's part, and we want a Truth and Reconciliation Commission based on the South African model, and that could be part of deciding the reparations.
But as far as MRTA, is there any way at this point that can become a part of the bill? Not all of that specifically, but just any of that.
I mean, when bills are on the floor, they all get negotiated. They usually take stuff out. I don't know, I mean, look who we're dealing with. The Greens have to be forward. SSDP has to make those 4 demands. We have to normalize the demands. They'll ridicule us, they'll attack us, that whole Gandhi thing. But you really want to get, the most important thing is the pardons, and
Pardons, reparations.
pardons, apologies, reparations, and the Truth and Reconciliation.
Okay, let's be honest. The form reparations taken will be nothing like you just said. But something has to be negotiated.
Well,
nobody's going to force private citizens to pay over.
They do that all the time. It's called fines.
For what? Well, give us an example. Maybe you're right.
Okay, jaywalking. You got to pay $25. Otherwise, they take your.
Yeah, we're talking about past. We're talking about the past. At any rate,
we're talking about now. They find people. Believe me, just putting that on the table scares the shit out of them. Now we are on the offensive. Before, we've always had to justify legalizing marijuana. We don't need to justify. You know what the real justification is for legalizing marijuana? We want it. We don't have to explain it. We don't have to prove the medical efficacy. We don't have to prove anything. We want it because we like it. I smoke pot and I like it a lot. At this point, it's not like I'm driving blindfold or anything like that. I mean, my father got my grandma. I come from 4 generations of potheads. The only time we get along is when we're smoking pot, And so I'm serious. We're not asking to molest children. Unlike all of these homophobic, asshole Republicans that want to restrict our rights, we're asking to expand our rights on something. Yes?
All of the same arguments would apply with equal argumentative validity to any other illegal drugs.
That's true.
Is that also part of the approach on this, to make it an across-the-board overturning of controlling medications?
See, here's the thing. Within the legalized drug movement, that's always been a divide. The pro-pot people tend to distance themselves from the rest of the movement. My own personal opinion is I want to legalize all drugs with medical oversight if needed be. You know, we do have Ibogaine as a way of dealing with problem heroin use. I don't believe.
I mean,
in prisons.
specifically the whole business of pardons, reparations, and so forth. It seems to me, in order to posit that you're effectively saying they had no right to make this law in the first place. It's not that we have changed our minds collectively and we now wish to make it legal. It was that it was illegal for them to have such a law, that it violated some principle. I can't see any way of putting that kind of argument forth without saying that it applies to...
Well, historically speaking, that is what happened.
That is what happened.
If you read the history of Anslinger and the people who...
yeah.
Yes, the people who did that, that's exactly what they did.
Yeah.
They put forth this whole notion of marijuana making people crazy and making them murderers.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And there was never any popular see, there was a popular outcry. One of the main theses of this book, Bonney and Whitebread, Richard J. Bonney was on Nixon's committee to examine the drug war, you know, and he has all kinds of bona fides, University of Virginia Law School, professor of history, et cetera, et cetera. It's well researched.
yeah.
Is that one of the main theses is that prohibition of alcohol did have a social basis, starting in the 1840s, you know, and all of these people, like temperance, you know, was part of the women's movement for a little while because alcohol was blamed for white beating and
sure.
stuff, which it was at the time, you know, I'm not denying that. But whatever, you know, you had Carrie Nation, Billy Sunday, there was a groundswell, even though they didn't make alcohol illegal till World War I. Why? Because they wanted to screw up Bohemians, Bohemians who were part of the Austro-Hungarian, Germans, and the Irish who were leaning anti-imperialist and siding with, you know, the triple and the Allies. The Allies back then were the Germans, Austro-Hungarians, and
Can I point something out?
yes.
As a person who read that book as well, I just want to point out there were studies about marijuana and the danger of it from the 20s to what years was it? LaGuardia? LaGuardia did a study. Each of these studies, and there was more than that, each of these studies found no harm. And they were pushed down and forgotten.
Richard Nixon's own commission, he
Yeah,
set up a commission.
which Bonnie was on.
And they advised him not to put it in Schedule 1, and he was like, nope, I'm going to put it in Schedule 1.
Okay, so what I'm suggesting is, and I think you know all this information, is why do we have a governor who's anti-pot? Why do we have a Senate that doesn't let this murder bill or the out of the committee? What's behind it all? There has to be more.
I'd like to know what.
There has to be more than just
Okay.
they think
the
it's not
status
that
quo
good.
Right now is, I guess, including Compassionate Care Act, right?
Okay, well, let me answer Ron's question. Is because it was always about maintaining a certain cultural hegemony. Like I said, in this other book I read recently, I forgot the name of it, is because, you know, the Mexicans had revolutionary ideals and they're moving into California.
I don't believe that. I believe there's money behind it. I think it's the
what's money?
pharmaceutical industry and other industries that will be harmed. The
No, but-
liquor industry.
I'm not arguing, but I agree, but the point is that it's very, illegality is a cultural bias thing, not based on the health and safety. It's a police-driven hysteria. And now the pharmaceuticals, as I say, there's that Journal of American Medical Association study said that 25% less use of opioids in states with medical or full legalization.
I mean, I was told whatever that like
the why cannabis became illegal, like even hemp became illegal, was because the paper industry, the lumber industry, they didn't want to lose any money from hemp, which was very good building material. I mean, hemp is what's won the war basically.
Well, that's true. That's the other aspect. It was the DuPonts in the Stamp Act, 1937. The DuPonts were developing petrochemical-based fibers, specifically nylon, right? Which could replace everything, all of this oil stuff here. That fucking flag is made out of oil, you know? It's a petrochemical-based fiber. I'm sure it's nylon or something. What is that made out of?
It's probably not.
That's probably it.
Okay, so that's made out of oil. You could make that out of hemp. So it's very interesting that, and this is in The Emperor Wears No Clothes by Jack Herrera. Harry Anslinger, the main anti-drug war guy, was married to a DuPont. Yes?
You mentioned the cultural aspect. Could it be like that the main reason why, I guess, marijuana or pot was attacked was a basic Puritanism? In other words, the fact that, the way that, that it was fun for people, but it took them away from work, and for that reason it was deemed evil, in a sense.
No, you're right, because
Yeah.
pot fueled the jazz age, and so blacks and whites were getting together.
Right.
And Anslinger and all the racists were like, you can't do that, you can't have fun, we can't have jazz, that's the jungle music.
Right. So that whole cultural aspect of
Yeah.
pot was a reason to make it illegal. I mean, that's.
You're right.
Yeah.
Well, Louis Armstrong, when he came out, that was like, that was like the Slayer or whatever's the hardest band of his day. The Slayer of his day, or Black Sabbath, or I don't know who the Sex Pistols of his day. That was Louis Armstrong. People were freaking out, like, what the hell is this? We can't take it. That song, La Cucaracha, which is about marijuana, was also introducing Mexican music into the U.S. And so the liberals in California are like, oh, it's this wild beat, and they're all like getting all dizzy and having these parties and hiring these Mexicans, and next thing you know, pot's coming out, and everybody's having fun, and everybody's screwing everybody, and we can't have that. No, I mean, yes, I say we can have that, but and the Anslingers of the world and all of the vicious Joe McCarthy's and whoever said we can't have that.
I think those were just excuses. He's married to a DuPont, and that's
there's
they want to
intersectionality
push millions and billions of dollars worth of their material. That's what makes the other things are just excuses.
I think they all kind of work in tandem.
Yeah, they work in tandem. I agree with them.
It's like,
Yes, I agree with you too. But
Well,
marijuana has been around for thousands of years. It's been used medically for thousands of years.
Right.
So you don't have to be doing like years and years of study to find out that it's harmless. And the book shows us.
Yeah.
Year after year there were studies and they were just pushed down. So the reason, it's not just cultural.
We
These
didn't say
cultural
that.
things are introduced to make it stick.
Everything you're saying is correct.
And then you said, right now, that there are polls that show that people do want it.
Yeah.
They're still against it, so that shows there's something stronger than cultural.
Okay, let me say, the three main oppositions to pot are: one, pharmaceutical. They are huge opposition to it. The other one is law enforcement, because they're sickies and it becomes for them it's an identity politics.
well, police departments make so much revenue just by prosecuting pot crimes. It makes up such a huge number of their arrests. So if you take that away from them, you're just cutting off a huge chunk of their income.
Right.
Also, if it's been wrong all this time to be arresting people for pot, then they've been doing a lot of wrongdoing, and that
Exactly.
doesn't match their image of themselves.
And that's where the reparations, because now your whole identity is based on this oppression, and now the people say we're sick of it, and now you got to answer to the public.
I was wondering, I hope that if you can elaborate accurately, that if nothing hypothetically, if nothing moves forward with Martyr, what we're left with currently, and that's like, what that means for us.
Well, it's the
Well,
capacity of
let me finish what I was saying, we'll get back to that. The other fact is Christian fascists hate pot.
But, in other words, I think the
Like
cultural
Pence and Sessions and all of them.
sinful. In other words,
Meanwhile, Jesus was anointed with pot. There's no Jesus without pot.
Really?
I'm sorry. I'm not Christian, but you know.
but I think the cultural thing shouldn't be, underplayed. Like, maybe there are economic reasons, maybe
Well, I
But
think,
what I want to say, for example, back in the '60s, it's like the largest society was worried that people were going to smoke too much pot and sort of tune out.
they did.
Even left-wing organizations, as I remember back in the '60s, were upset with people that were too much hippies and smoking too much pot because they couldn't concentrate on revolutionary politics.
Right.
There's a lot, and that was kind of a Puritanism within the movement also.
Sure.
I think you can't, that's,
I don't dismiss any of it.
it's all
I-
related, but I think that's a big factor.
We're also, we're kind of like looking at, we're trying to find different justifications for prohibition throughout the whole history of prohibition. Like, the reasons why it was prohibited in 1937 might not necessarily be the same reason it's still prohibited in 2017.
Yeah.
So it's important to understand the history behind it, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but
Well, we're not
but
dismissing
but
anything.
we're not. Let's not have an argument about it in the sense that you just said. Even nationally, the polls show that our politicians don't do what we
Right.
want. So that shows that it's not a matter of the people feel are Puritan now. They're not all those reasons.
Right, but I said the pharmaceutical companies, I already said the economic.
So I think I just think
There's
that-
also there's a difference.
We did say that, we're agreeing, and that's Sam, Patrick Kennedy, he's gotta pay reparations.
okay.
Everyone who works for smart on marijuana, they have to pay reparations. Either they have to be part of our water reclamation product, in which we use hemp to restore aquifers, and we're willing to use these politicians as slave labor. That's not very green. Okay, we don't. That's just part of the yippie side.
Also, there's something I just thought about. It might be the case that 56-60% of Americans nationwide support cannabis, or in the state of New York, 60, 70, 80%, whatever it is, support cannabis. That doesn't mean that those are the people who go out and vote and elect the politician. Like, I know people in my life, and I'm sure you all do too. I know people who believe in their hearts that pot use is wrong and that it's dangerous, and they're well-intentioned people, but they've just been taught that it's bad. And maybe those are the people who go out and vote and support prohibition on based on what they think is moral and ethical grounds. But the politicians, the people in office, they're probably just exploiting that side of the issue. But for them, why they would continue to support prohibition and oppose reform could be the financial interest that you're talking about.
No, could be. We know about
Right,
without
is.
contributions
Yeah.
to politicians.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there we go, we figured that out.
Good.
But what I'm saying is those politicians have to play off of people's cultural fears to get
Yeah,
to
it's called
keep themselves
divide
in
and
power.
rule. To get people working against Puritanism, it's not necessary. People are not that Puritan anymore.
Well, you gotta put every argument forward. I mean, like I said, this person I knew had been in prison for 10 years for selling crack. He needed street credibility, but he's a very bright, smart guy. He said to me, going back to my original statement, the only real reason to legalize pot is because it's the moral and ethical thing to do. There's all this other stuff that plays into it. We can argue all of that, but ultimately, like I said, who looks at someone smoking pot or even selling like a pound or something, or even 500 pounds and wants to throw them in jail? What's that all about? Yes, medical marijuana clinic in Billings, Montana, or whatever, I don't know. So next thing you know, there's all these like 25 and 30-year-old people, theoretically with bad backs and PTSD, but they're wearing their like Rasta clothes and they're playing hacky sack. Do you know what hacky sack is? That leather ball thing where they're all kicking it and all that. He has a bad back, but meanwhile he can like put his foot behind his ear, you know, but whatever. So the cops are looking at that and said, see, oh! So the cops, and this was a referendum by the people in Montana, the cops and the Republicans went in there and put a bill to rescind it. Of course, luckily it was a Democrat. I hate saying this, luckily it was a Democratic governor said no. The people voted for it and he vetoed the bill. But the point is, the cops are just upset that there's a bunch of people online waiting to get their medical marijuana based on, and then there's the race, marijuana, like with the attacks on Billie Holiday and the jazz, and Louis Armstrong and Mez Meserol. Mez Meserol was this so-so drummer that supplied all the jazz people with pot, and he would write all these pot songs that they would make jazz out of, you know. So it became associated with black culture, and like I said, the biggest flourishing of pot culture, going back to what Jim said, was in the 20s with jazz, in the 60s with the civil rights movement. And of course, you know, like they used COINTELPRO to get some lupins to infiltrate the Panthers and do all kinds of self-destructive things. So it became a way, and they did that with AIM, American Indian Movement, you know, and they, you know, and the drug war was all part of that. Was all part of it. In fact, you know, the famous thing with Nixon's or Haldeman saying that in that article on Harper's saying, yeah, we made pot, we pressed the drug war again because the problems were the blacks, you know, the Black Panthers and the hippies, and they knew that was the Achilles heel.
Yes, I recall Haldeman and Ehrlichman admitted, or one of them who lived the longest, admitted that the reason Nixon did the drug war was to hold down blacks, or one of the main reasons.
Exactly. So interesting. What was interesting to me is that that article came out in like 1979 or 80 or something, and then it's been reissued again. All of a sudden, it's making the news 2 years ago, in the height of all of this pro-marijuana sentiment, you know. So that article, I mean, we've known that for years, but now that article made a comeback for some reason. So obviously, the bottom is pushing against the top. The top doesn't really want to change because they like the status quo for the cultural and the economic reasons. And the top that's willing to concede wants to figure out a way to channel it so that they can profiteer off it. And that's why we want, and profiteer it at the expense of the grassroots people, to use a pun.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so, I would like to ask you, Paul and Alex, what your judgment is on the Common Court, to someone who doesn't know anything about it.
What?
I mean, not the Common Court, the Compassionate Care Act.
Oh yeah, he was just going to get to that.
Yeah, so we're talking about
What's your
that.
judgment on that?
See, this leads to the various, the Compassionate Care Act, like I said, we won the revolution out of the Civil War, so there are groups like the Drug Policy Alliance, Marijuana Policy Project, and a few others, Normal, National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. You know, they all, basically, Marijuana Policy Project is funded by this billionaire, Peter B. Lewis, who eventually died, but they still get money from all kinds of rich people. Soros funds Drug Policy Alliance, and basically these are coalitions, these are fronts for venture capitalists, lawyers, medical establishments that want to monopolize the marijuana thing. And so they knew that they had to have some kind of medical marijuana bill. So Sherry Netherlander, who was the legislative aide of DPA, worked with Diane Savino, who was a Republican, who was a Democrat, working with the Democratic you know, the Republicans, you know, those Democrats that caucus with Republicans, what are they again?
I forget what you call them.
Yeah, but there's like 5 Democrats in the state Senate that, and so they negotiated with Cuomo, and so they came up with this bill to limit who can get the licenses, which is these 5 companies. It's vertically integrated, as I said, it's from production to distribution. And the DPA was hoping that the people who were funding them, they would be the front runners in getting the licenses. Of course, that didn't happen. The licenses, you wanted the license, you had to go through Aldamato and other politically connected lobbying firms. So the DPA got screwed, they're not happy with the bill, they want it expanded, and so now they have these monopolies where it's incredibly expensive to get your CBD. You can't even smoke pot, you gotta use their version of CBD oil.
You have to use extracts or.
Extracts, and one of the companies is a Connecticut company. They showed how they make it. The guy's wearing a hazmat suit, you know, reducing it all to this glop, you know, like you see the government, you wear the hazmat suit for the government pot, but everybody else is just in the field in the Super Bowl parties,
So
you know, the Rastaman, he's naked in Jamaica in the woods, smoking and chilling. You know, and he's like 500 years old. Yeah, this don't hurt me, you know. But the government makes us do all that. And that's precisely to control it, to make sure that their politically connected buddies get all the profits. One of the companies that got the licenses was a road construction crew doing business with the state for 90 years. One of them was Mount Sinai Hospital. They work with DPA. And so, of course, but, you know, that's old money, WASP.
It also undermines the medicinal value of the plant itself by forcing you to only consume it in extract form, because if you know about how all the different cannabinoids in the plant work, you know, there's like hundreds of different cannabinoids in cannabis, and you know we don't even know what all of them do, but they all have different effects. And whether you smoke it, or whether you vaporize it, or whether you eat it, or use it as a tincture, you extract different, like you get a different you get different usefulness out of each different way of consuming the plant. So by limiting medicinal patients to only using extracts, that they're depriving them of, you know, the ability to get the full medicinal value out of the plant.
So basically, if you just legalize marijuana recreational use, the medical stuff would follow, is it right?
Yes.
In other words, I read, it was just a couple of months ago in one of the Heralds, the local newspaper, this columnist, Randy Kreis, I don't know if you know, but apparently she had some kind of, she needs medical marijuana. She writes like, you know, kind of a lot of fluff stuff, but she wrote this, because apparently she needed medical marijuana, but she took a trip to, I guess, Holland, and she was saying in Holland she could just smoke it. She said she took like a few puffs and she was fine, whereas back in the States, she has to go through all this stuff with the oils.
Right.
So in other words, basically, if the Green Party is pursuing legalization, this would make
Right.
all those other laws like irrelevant, right?
The doctors would be free to develop their own protocols. They wouldn't have to answer to the state. Of course, they would have to answer to certain ethics commissions, you know, because theoretically you could use the poison of the pufferfish to cure stuff, you know. But I'd hope the doctor would not test it on you. But, you know, but basically, you know, marijuana is shown to be benign for most people. And so the doctors and whatever, I'm even against the AMA being part of the regulatory process, specifically because now they're for pot, not because the science changed, but because the politics changed. So that shows that they're unethical in their own ways. You know, it should just be legalized, and then within their own sphere of activities, under certain ethics guidelines, they can develop whatever protocols they need to treat whatever diseases can be treated. So yes, Jim, I agree with you 100% on that. And anyone else who said the same thing?
Well, something I learned from you was that Cuomo is an anti-pot person,
Yeah.
period. And, okay, I have a condition where I feel I could use medical marijuana. I looked up to see if there's any doctors. My doctor doesn't want to be part of the Compassionate Care Act. He doesn't want to be registered. And most of them don't seem to want to. The only doctors I could find were pain doctors. Now, my condition is not painful. It's a serious condition, but it's not painful. So I can't get use
Now
of
it's
that.
painful.
I can't even find a specialist who wants to belong to this. It's a very restrictive act. So it seems to me like a ridiculous thing
Well,
to
he
have.
said in 2013 it's the gateway drug. Meanwhile, this stooge, Governor Cuomo, I saw myself, he took $25,000 for the last election cycle from John Sackler. John Sackler is on the board of directors of Purdue Pharma. Purdue Pharma produces OxyContin. Purdue Pharma has recently gotten, I put this on the website, gotten a license to test OxyContin on children. And not only that, within Connecticut, they're a Connecticut-based family. They made Forbes' list of richest family. They're worth about $6 billion. They've given $91,000 to Connecticut Democrats for charter schools. So imagine you mix OxyContin in charter schools. Your kid has a toothache. A trip to the school nurse is a life-altering event. Okay? So that's how sleazy they are. That's how sleazy
I don't think
Cuomo
a school nurse could, because you would have to get a prescription for it.
The OxyContin runs the school.
It's a charter school.
It's a charter school. It's not a public school. Here, it's a
So I don't think legally a school nurse could just give them OxyContin.
Well, maybe not, but they'll have the
They
school
might.
doctor. They might. You don't know what they're
When they
pushing.
enroll their son, they might sign something saying we give the school nurse,
Yeah.
the authorization to prescribe
So
something.
some of these arguments are really, I think, are self-sabotaging for your cause.
What sense?
Well, suggesting that the charter school is owned by the company that makes OxyContin so they can give children OxyContin. It's a
Well,
little bit over the edge.
It's a little bit over the edge. It's just something in the air. Just be aware of it. Just keep your eye on it. Don't trust them. Maybe not. Maybe it's totally benign. We don't really know. I mean, But the fact is, these are the same people that are against pot.
I support the legalization of marijuana,
Yeah.
or pot, if you prefer. I think that some of the things that are being presented probably don't help that cause.
Well, we're just talking about the general political situation of Governor Cuomo and the conflicts of interest.
So that'd be great to hear about.
Yeah, well, I just did. I just told you that there's a conflict of interest. The pharmaceuticals are one of the primary funders of the anti-pot movement, right? Governor Cuomo is taking $25,000 officially on the record from them, then claiming that marijuana is the gateway drug because New York State has a heroin epidemic when there's overwhelming evidence that the heroin epidemic is caused by numerous prescription drugs, opiate drugs, Vicodin, OxyContin, Percocet, and whatever. And so what happens is not everyone gets hooked on heroin, but a lot of people get hooked on the painkillers, the prescription runs out, heroin is actually cheaper in the street than non-prescribed OxyContin, Percocet, and all of that. And the heroin epidemic is caused by this overuse of opioids. That connection has been made. So it may not necessarily directly relate to pot, but it shows the conflicts of interest, the sleaziness of both the Democrats and the Republicans taking pharmaceutical money on the one hand, while meanwhile dealing with marijuana on the other hand. But one second, and as I said, the Journal of American
May I
Medical
have your attention,
Association,
please?
wait,
The library is closing at 9 p.m.
okay, the Journal of American
All
Medical is
computers
proven,
check out dusk now.
okay, the
All
Journal,
public computers will be turned off at this time.
see, he's probably on OxyContin. So, okay, I hear you. So the Journal of American Medical Association, the most respected medical association journal in the United States, has said that states with legalized marijuana have a 25% reduction of opioid use. Okay, and that's been going all over the place.
That's scary.
So you're right. It is kind of an
I'm really
obtuse kind
on your
of thing.
side. My suggestion would be to lead with that.
Okay. Well, no, this is
You
general.
might do better.
Lead with what?
Lead with that information that you just provided, rather
Right.
than the
Another-
accusation
yeah.
that someone is starting a charter school to book 7-year-olds on OxyContin. Because
Well-
I think if you maybe even may be able to defend the first one, but I think you're better off.
Okay, the
With
criticism
conflict of
is
interest.
noted, and I will do that. You're right. Well, I was just rambling, okay? I mean, you are correct.
Okay, but it's not that okay for this kind of presentation. You gave a lot of suppositions that
I
to
feel like
me
I'm
were
with my
skewed.
parents.
Well, you might be.
You need some pot, both.
I'm old enough to
You're right.
be your parent.
You're right, and you're right. I'm not gonna argue with you, because you are right.
You
Well,
can say
I
that as
just want-
much as you want.
I
Yes.
just want to say we have to finish fairly
Okay,
soon.
let
'cause
him finish the
we're late
question,
in the
then let
charges.
Alex,
Actually,
observation.
I just really, Ron, I just touched on something that I thought was.
You're right, sir, I didn't mean to show you this.
Coming from a care perspective, that if a doctor feels threatened just by he has to register for the Compassionate Care Act. So that's a thing, a doctor can only prescribe marijuana, the extract, if he's registered. So, what are the, other restrictions, because, I'll be brief,
He has to take a course,
the
actually.
person, okay, so the person who became a state assembly person who campaigned on medical marijuana, her son is special needs, and that's why she was all for marijuana. We don't know what she'd like to do. So, if I could hold the feet to the fire as to what the compassionate care is restricting, it's excluding from people who need care, what would you say is what needs to just totally be
Well, that's why we're for total legalization, and just let people get their pot.
I know that's the light at the end of the tunnel, but right now, what are other things that are just hurting people from this compassionate
Well,
care?
it just shows you,
Well, you can't get it. I can't get anything. I can't get anything because I'm not in pain.
I'll give you an anecdote. You know, when they were testifying to get the Compassionate Care Act, there's this one little 7-year-old that had this incredible form of epilepsy, and they put her there, and in the middle of her testimony, she had an epileptic fit, and then she died like a little while after that. And so like 7 children died nationally, 2 in New York State, while waiting for it. And so Governor Cuomo, and he actually held up the implementation of it. So they have no concern for the health of people whatsoever. I don't know how to speed up the process of getting it legal, other than working with SSDP and other groups on a grassroots level. We do the street activism. We're gonna have the marijuana march in New York City. We can do marijuana marches here, pressure the congressman, run one strong green pro-marijuana campaigns. I mean, it's gotta be a multi-effort. I'll have to sharpen up my presentation.
We do have to consider how to improve the Compassionate Care Act, because even if we get MRTA implemented, that only allows people over the age of 21 or whatever it is to buy pot. So children with epilepsy, there has to be some legal way for them to obtain it. And obviously parents don't want to buy pot for their kids to get high; they want to buy it to treat them.
Right.
So
Your
it is.
But
So it is.
as Republican, I think that that's who you're defining, like a tight ass Republican. Where am I gonna get pot for my
Well,
kids?
even Clinton was against pot.
I'm just using the person I ran against. I know Democrats are against it too.
Yeah.
I just want to hear your most of your point, Alex.
So, I'm not like an expert on the CCA and nor not even on the MRTA, but so I don't want to like give you all the definitive answers to that. But I just want us all to raise that question: how can we improve the Compassionate Care Act and get more doctors to be registered and increase the accessibility for more patients that need
Okay,
cannabis.
well, the CCA has a provision in which the Commissioner of Health can, on his own volition, expand or shrink who gets it and who doesn't. So there were 12 bills in the New York State Legislature for pot. If you go on the Facebook page, I list them all. They all didn't even make it out of commission. One of them is for pain, and then what happened is that bill didn't even make it out of committee, but then the Commissioner Zucker, we can all call Commissioner Zucker and start pressuring him to do that. That's one avenue, because that's already in the CCA that the Commissioner, and really, so the Commissioner answers to the Governor. It all boils down to Cuomo.
Who wants to run for president?
Yeah.
One major difference between illegal recreational drug use and legal recreational drug use is that anyone who continues to use illegal drugs is conceptualized as a drug abuser. And there's a whole medical industry built around the idea that drug abuse is a thing.
I have a suggestion.
Okay,
There's a
well-
country, Portugal, that has been, all drugs are legal, but
Decriminalized, not legalized.
decriminalized.
Yeah.
Yes, but this has been for a number of years.
Yeah.
Drug use of children has not gone up, it slightly went down. And there's a lot to be learned from
Great,
that,
yeah.
and to put that out front
There was
and
a lot.
forward.
Really good, a lot of good effects that came out of that. Yeah.
And
Okay.
but our pot people don't talk about that. I never hear them
No, we
mentioning
do.
it. I
Well-
see it written about, but I don't hear it talked about.
Okay, we're just gonna have to, and I think this is great, you guys did a great presentation. I think we have to get out now, because otherwise we're charged.